Yo, what is up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another review on the moment ADRIEN RABIOT. We're going to go through the card's details, stats, clips and summary, as well as the SBC requirements for you guys to get your hands on him. Before we get into all of that, if I could ask you guys to please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that bell so you know when I upload, and comment down below if you're going to be doing this card. And without further ado, let's get into the review. So guys, this is the team that I use ADRIEN RABIOT in. I played him in the 4-2-1 in that DM spot. Now I did try and use him both as an attacking midfielder and a central midfielder as well. But overall guys, I felt like this deep line playmaker spot was the best role for him. And overall guys, I think his general play was pretty decent. I feel like he transitioned well from defense to attack. There were a couple of things that put me off though. Without further ado though, let's just get into the review. ADRIEN RABIOT, 6'4", medium work rates, left footed, 3-star moves and 3-star weak foot, 9 games played, 2 goals scored and 4 assists. Now guys, the first thing I want to talk about is those work rates. Medium. He did feel very lazy in the midfield, guys. He didn't move around a lot, and the play passed by him quite a lot as well, which was quite a frustrating thing to have in a midfielder, especially one that's so combative like he can be. His 3-star weak foot as well is a bit of a con, especially if you're going to play him in midfield, and the 3-star swing moves for you skillers out there also is a bit of a drawback too. However, I found him okay with the skill moves. The weak foot though is a big one for me. I would have liked that to have been 4-star. In terms of the details guys, I tried an engine and a castless on him. There are other ways you can go with this. You can go with a shadow as well, of course. I just wanted to try those two out. We'll get more into the preferred chemistry style towards the end of the review. Getting into the key stats guys, overall guys, this card is really decent at everything. The short and long pass are really good. The shot power and long shots are great as well. Even the defending and physicality stats are good as well. But across the board guys, this card is very good, very decent at everything in terms of how he plays. So there's not really anything that I could pick out as a real key pro of this card. The defending stats are all good, the physicality is decent, the passing is good, the shooting is good, and the pace is a bit of a drawback. We'll just get into that now. The first con is that pace. I would say that he does struggle a little bit in terms of speed and quickness, but if you're playing him in the base of that midfield, you've got a little bit more time to operate, so that allows you to play with a bit of a slower pace in there. However, I would say that guys, in the transition, if you have a lazy midfielder, then that does work to your detriment in that he won't be able to track the runs as well. His agility and balance are also a bit of an issue in that regard, along with the dribbling, and those things were all off too. And the defensive awareness, if you are wanting to lean more defensive responsibility on this card, you maybe want to boost that instead. Finally guys, getting into the player traits, none to speak home of. So without further ado, we're going to get into what the SBC requirements are for you guys to get your hands on it. So guys, getting straight into ADRIEN RABIOT's SBC requirements, 319 on the PlayStation 3, 10 on the Xbox, 380 on the PC. Now this SBC requires 2 completions of SBCs in this. The first one 142k requiring an 84 rated squad with an informed player, and the second one 176k with requiring an 85 rated squad. So overall guys, this is a pretty expensive SBC, and I feel like a lot of this cost of course comes down to what his link ability is. Of course he links with a strong link to Franck Ribery, he has strong links to Paulo Dybala, Cristiano Ronaldo as well of course in there too, as well as the other Juve players that we'll get into more into the summary. So guys, I feel like a lot of his cost comes from there. I do feel like this is incredibly high for what this card is. I feel like this card should be lower, around the mark of where actually Paulo Dybala was. We'll get more into that into the summary, but now that we've covered the SBC requirements, we're going to get into some of the clips that I got with him. So guys, getting into some of ADRIEN RABIOT's clips, and what you guys are going to see here is his general ability to play that midfield role and dominate the middle of the park actually, and how he played when he was on the ball. Now the first thing I want to get into guys is that passing range. His passing is really good guys. And I found myself using his passing a lot, especially when I needed to transition from defense to attack or play what will surprise you guys, a defense splitting pass. And this guy's defense splitting passes were really good, just in terms of how he's able to ping the ball through, or ping the ball to a certain area where you don't really expect him to be able to do so. What that did allow for guys was me just to be able to create chances and opportunities for my team and score easy goals. Guys, the next thing I want to get into is his defensive capability. Now guys, because of his size, because of his tackling stats as well, when you have control of him and you're defending with him, it's very good. He's very capable, and it's very easy to defend with him as well, especially because of that size, body type and defending stats. However, in contrast to this, when you're not controlling him, the defensive awareness is too low, his positioning is sometimes really poor, and I think that does contribute to why he feels so lazy off the ball when you're holding someone else and he's trying to defend as well in there. Which leads me nicely on to the point about his work rates guys, and this was the biggest con for me in terms of how poorly this card played. His work rates really didn't suit him well in terms of what he was able to do off the ball. I feel like the medium work rates along with the defensive work rate meant he was passed by a lot in the midfield, and for someone who is so big and strong and powerful, especially considering what he can do in that midfield, you really want him to be more involved in terms of breaking up the play and then transitioning into creating chances. Now, I of course played him in the midfield with Toni Kroos, so he was my main defensive anchor at times as well, which he really did struggle with unless I was controlling him and managed to bring him around to get the ball. The next thing I'm going to get into, guys, actually, which is a surprising pro of this card, was his shooting. Now, initially, you guys will have seen a couple of these shots, which I took from distance. They were finesse shots. As I started to play more games with them, I realized that I needed to ping the shots just as standard long shots. You will see one absolute peach, which I scored later on in the clips as well. But as I got more and more comfortable with his shooting, guys, I was able to do more and more with it, and just start creating chances with him as well, or taking on opportunities which normally players, you can't take them on from that distance. He was able to just take on these shots and start creating opportunities as well. Now, the next thing I want to get into, guys, another con of this card, is the pace. The pace is a little low, guys, but what I feel like is if you play this card using 1-2s, which is actually how I generally use this card, I played a lot of 1-2s with this card, the pace is really nullified because of how he moves through the gears in midfield. He is so big and his dribbling is relatively decent despite having low agility and balance, and if you do boost that, it becomes a heck of a lot better. But that is a real pro of this card, is that he's able to move reasonably well through the midfield despite having low pace and low dribbling in terms of agility, balance and dribbling as well, which was quite surprising considering how big he is. I still think, of course, that he isn't quite at that elite level for a big man. Of course, he won't be given the stats that he has, but it's usable nonetheless, and with a slight boost he will become a lot better. Guys, as we get into these final few clips, you're just going to see more of what I was doing with this card in terms of transitioning through that midfield from defense to attack. Again, lovely ball over the top there, creating an opportunity. These last few clips, again, transitioning into the attack here and taking on a long strike from distance here. One of the key features which I was learning with the card as I was going along. And now we're going to get into the goals, guys. And the first one is actually a transition run from defense into the attack, driving through, slipping it past the defender with a lovely little move there and scoring. And in this final one, an absolute rocket. Gets the ball tackled off him here, gets it back here, plays a little 1-2 into the man there and smashes it into the top corner. So, guys, getting to this final ADRIEN RABIOT summary: 319 on the PlayStation, 310 on the Xbox, and 379 on the PC. Now, guys, getting straight into the stats, of course, the key stats for me: the passing, the long shots, and the reasonable ball control that he has, as well as all this physicality and defending stats. Now, guys, he does need a bit of a helping hand, and you need to consider that in terms of how you want to play him when you're applying this chemistry style. If you're going to play him as a more defensive role, then maybe the shadow would fit him best to give him that pace and defending boost. However, his defensive awareness does still stay very low. You may be worth looking at a chemistry style which boosts that a little more and enables him to be a little bit better in terms of being able to defend across the board really well. In terms of if you're going to play him further forward and use him as a transitional midfielder, guys, I would recommend the Engine. I think that does a lot for him in terms of just his general capability, boosts all the right stats in the right areas. However, guys, of course, there are a number of ways you can go with this card. That would just be my one, as his pace does need a bit of a helping hand. If we look at similar sorts of players, guys, what we arrive at here, Delaney, Tonali. I think Tonali isn't a bad shout at all. I do think he plays very similarly to this Curtis Jones. However, I think this Curtis Jones was a little more dynamic in midfield for me. I feel like Rabiot lacked that energy element that I needed him to have. Camavinga maybe too high a comparison to put on him, but still, nevertheless, Rabiot a very good card. If we get into the linkability, guys, and this is where obviously this card starts to stand out. Of course, strong links to the French icons as well as Juve players like Cristiano Ronaldo, all those versions there. And as we get further down the list, the Moments Dybala, Flashback Ribery, Freeze, Chiellini, a bunch of links in there. Kulusevski's there too. The other Flashback Ronaldo, of course, there as well as all these Juve players and French players such as Theo Hernandez coming through. Jordan Marquis is in there as well. So lots of nice linkability there too. If we look at the price, guys, in terms of where he stacks up against other defensive midfielders, you've got this defensive midfielder Reece James here. Now, this card is a much more defensive specialist compared to ADRIEN RABIOT. If I actually just go and limit this price by ADRIEN RABIOT's price, we'll be able to see where he stacks up directly compared to the comparable players. And guys, overall, I think this card is okay in terms of how he compares to that Reece James. I don't feel like he vastly outperforms him. And if you compare him even further up to Joshua Kimmich, I think, of course, these guys are more specialists in that defensive midfielder role. And as well around him, you've got Bernardo Silva and Bruno Fernandes. If we look directly below him, you'll see Paul Pogba is sat in there as well, and Frankie de Jong's second in form. Now, if I was to compare him to those two, which is much more the style of play that you should be comparing this card to, I think he stacks up well against them. Do I feel like he justifies this price tag? I think because of the linkability, the nation, if his weak foot and skill moves were 1 star higher, I would say that this price tag is fully justified. I feel like this is slightly high, given that he's slightly handicapped in that area. If I was to say a price level which I would be happy with this at, maybe 260, 270k would be around the point where I'd be like, okay, that's a fair enough price for an FBC, and given how well he links into some of the players that we've got already, I think that would be a fair price, which leads me into my final recommendation, guys, which is this card is okay in terms of pricing. I would not recommend doing him for this pricing. I would see how things pan out over the next day or so, especially with this SBC expiring soon. You'll need to consider whether you do actually want to complete it. But I do feel like this SBC is slightly overpriced. However, what you do get from this card is fantastic linkability and fantastic ability to be able to create a team or a hybrid as well with other leagues such as Liga and even the Premier League as well, or the Bundesliga. They've all got fantastic links in there for him to go towards. So guys, this does provide another option in terms of squad building and just gives you something different as well. If the price does dip to around 270, 280, I don't know if it will, given at how late we are in the season, then I would recommend doing this SBC. However, for 319, I just feel like it's slightly too high for me. Hope you guys did enjoy this review. If you did, please do smash that like button. Until next time, I will see you all in a bit.